It's Tuesday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from 234 King Street East. The Pacific Junction Hotel. A very interesting show today, including one of our new favorites. Man, was he good last time, Clark Judge.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He just, we got into not only just talking about, obviously, the games at hand, so much more, and we will continue to talk about the protesting. Because now it's taken on almost a ridiculous, and I think now it's gone to the ridiculous areas of how people now are choosing to decide what the protest is. But by doing that, I think the original essence of what the protest was has been lost. Now it's just a protest. Honestly, what is it? A protest against Trump.
Basically.
That's what it is.
Yeah. President's a dick. We're gonna outsmart him.
Yeah. We're billionaires. We're gonna do business our way. You call our product sons of bitches, I'm taking a knee.
Bingo.
It's just, and so we'll talk to Clark, who's I think he's based in the New York area, is he not?
He is.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah.
So we'll talk about, just how long does it go on too, by the way? Or this stance that a guy like Jerry Jones would have made, is that signal to you? Because I saw that and I thought, okay, it's over now. Once he starts kneeling. And Colin Kaepernick's got to be at home going, what the fuck? I can't get a job. This guy wouldn't even hire me.
Yeah.
And now he's kneeling on national television?
Yeah. My favorite part of it was when he was kneeling, he was looking around to see if there's any cameras looking at him.
Totally. Totally.
What a glory pig.
Which way do I look now?
Exactly.
Am I close to the other players? Yeah. Make sure you get a couple of black ones in there too. Yeah. Yeah. I'm Unity. I'm from Unity. Yeah, Unity's good. Unity.
If only Tony Romo was here too.
Oh, Tony. He's for diversity too. Oh, I know. Trust me. Late night swimming pool swimming. I used to call it piggies in the pool. Oh yeah. He won't shy neither.
Nope.
He was always wishing Dave Baxter would be there too.
A side note on Tony Romo.
Yeah.
I actually listened to his game, Green Bay, Cincinnati. Because, you channel surf a lot when you go through NFL, but I legitimately listen. He's pretty good. He's a pretty good analyst. I like him. I didn't like him as a quarterback. I'm not a Tony Romo guy. I'm not a Dallas Cowboys guy, but he's a decent color analyst. I like him.
The report card from mostly from, I try to gather a lot of information from those specific like NFL channels, south of the border, good friends like Alex Marvez, the show he has on. The report card for Tony Romo is that he's doing a really good job.
Is it really? Okay.
Totally.
I didn't know that.
It's like an A. He's getting an A.
I thought maybe you're going to turn back and say, actually, people hate him. Like, no, I like him.
No, people wanted to hate him.
Yes,
they wanted him to be shit, and that's just not what happened.
Yeah.
He is doing a very good job.
Nice,
because when he does analyze it, and if you've caught some of what he does, he will look at how it's kind of how football people watch football. And people are like, oh, okay, Mike, what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. When the camera's on and you're sitting there and you're watching the television before the play starts, and once the ball is snapped, what do you watch? I know what you watch. Where do your eyes go when the ball is snapped? Who do you watch?
They only watch the quarterback.
You watch the quarterback.
That's it.
And if you play football or are a football person, I'm just saying, that's not what you do.
No.
You are looking on the other side. It's sort of like, to a degree, the level of hockey that you played. When Austin Matthews is skating down the ice, if you're only watching him, which that's what the majority does, that's how the camera works, but generally you're kind of, aren't you, Dave, looking around to see who's on the wing? If the guy's behind the net, are you not looking who's on the...
What's the next step?
Yes.
Kind of thing. And especially from the press box perspective, because you get to see that ice. Like I love sitting in the Platinums. I've done it a handful of times, but don't laugh.
No, see, because I don't see you. Because you're really into the game. I'm the guy that goes to the Platinums. I've been like maybe, and not for, I don't think I've been for hockey.
No,
for hockey.
I don't miss game.
Basketball.
I don't miss periods or anything.
I'm the guy that goes in and they were pouring all this wine and there was like a carvery, there was a roast beef and cocktails. I never went back.
Yeah, see,
they saw me once and I was never seen again. Right to the booze and the beef. Right? That's what I did.
You fit right in with the rest of the group.
So, what do you say? You buying stocks? Stocks? No. But I'll have a little more piece of beef and can
and fill up that wine.
Yeah. And this looks a little empty. Sir, are you leaving? No.
And not the stuff in the bag.
In the box, yeah.
In the box.
Would you like
wine in a box?
Yeah, it was a very good day. Come on, where's the good stuff? Blow the dust off it. Let's go. But no, the Platinums you've been.
Yeah, but best perspective, press box, upper deck. You see the ice surface, and you see the guy cutting up the middle. You see the corners. You see the turns. You see the drop. You see the set play of what they're trying to design. Not necessarily the what the guy is doing with the puck. It's like no. He has him. He has him. He doesn't have him. Why is that guy out of place? Look at the defenseman. 2 defensemen pinching over to the left, pinching over to the right. Whatever the scenario is. And it's like you can kind of tell who knows, and you know what, bless you, no matter how you watch the game.
You can watch what way. I'm just saying, that's how it is. So when Tony Romo's looking and he's doing his analysis of the play, he'll start calling out what he sees like he would as a quarterback. This is what I found was really funny. What he's seeing before the ball is snapped. He goes, "Oh, there's DB. Okay, they're playing off 2. They're playing a cover." Whatever. He goes, they're probably they're going to run the ball to the right.
Yeah.
Now, he is not right 100% of the time. So someone said, yeah, I saw a couple of plays where he called her. A couple of plays were wrong. I'm like, whatever, dude.
Yeah, but that's just part of the sport, right?
Yeah,
I mean, when the quarterback's just there, like, I mean, watch a Mike Lennon game, and all you have to do is hear the announcer go, he had such and such open. Yeah, we know. You know, that's what happens to anybody.
Yeah.
It's like tight end does a cut, maybe a linebacker slips. That's a wide open target. He decides to go deep left pattern, whatever the scenario is. This happens all the time. Just like when he's calling the play, it's easy to be that armchair quarterback and say, I'm expecting run off tackle left, run off tackle right, whatever the scenario is. But that running back doesn't necessarily see the same thing. He should, but doesn't necessarily see the same thing. Maybe he runs off guard. Maybe he sweeps. Maybe, you know what? It's different. It's just different how you look at it. And the perspective of the box is fantastic. I love watching football up, hockey up. Baseball's just baseball kind of thing. There's not really a way of strategically, you could see things, but not like in those other sports.
Not like those other sports. That's why I think when I hear a good radio play-by-play guy, I mean a really good one. So you're driving, and I kind of miss this a little bit. Really good basketball, and that's hard to do because that game is moving so quickly, just like hockey.
Yep.
Who do you like in hockey? But a great football guy will, and some of these guys who've been south of the border, they've done this for so long. They're setting up strategically what's happening. So it's trips to the right. He's in he's in the pistol. They've got he goes, I can see a little there. He sets it up so nicely that a good radio play-by-play guy is just. I'm not saying it's a lost art, but basically we're a society that everything's visual. I mean, if I really truly want to catch a game, I mean there are ways of actually watching it on your phone or your tablet. So we see everything. The kids growing up today, I want to see something. Honestly, it's why we did the show the way we've done it.
Yeah.
Because I know that if guys want to see it, now it's ended up on here. We didn't have that beforehand. Now we do. It's the nature of it. And because of that, I just wonder, the Joe Bowens of the world who do it here in Toronto. The great Peter Marr for years that did the Calgary games. I mean, every city's kind of had their guy, but those are the two that I personally know. They can set that thing up on radio, and exactly. And for Joe Bowen, he also doesn't do. We have Dave Mishkin on the show all the time, the Tampa Bay guy, but both Bowen and Peter Marr, even though there's a little more obviously volume for a Leaf goal, Joe still puts volume on a visitor goal.
Yes. Dave
Mishkin, he'll stop talking.
Yes.
Like he's so offended that happened. He goes, and goal. When it's the other way around, Tampa scored.
And it's awesome because when he used to work with Phil, not only would Dave go, goal, and you'd hear Esposito in the background
for
going,
Christ's sakes. Christ.
Oh, he missed his man.
Oh, God damn it. I was like, Phil was the best. That was the best color. So last night, here we have a game. And for the most part, I mean, the Arizona Cardinals has bugged me anyways. And I do like watching Dak Prescott. I mean, I do. I think for these guys who aren't drafted as #1 phenoms. I'd just love to see how good they can be, and he has been very good. He was great last night. Of course, Ezekiel Elliott's still playing, which I believe, Dave, he's going to play all year.
He's going to play all year.
Yeah, so he's going to play all year.
If he gets a suspension, it's going to be the Tom Brady type where it's like postponed for the entire year.
Yeah.
2018. He won't sit out 6. He'll sit out 2 or 3, and then
it becomes a bit of a joke. But no joke. Last night, there's Jerry Jones linked in unity with his players before the anthem, because he put himself in a bit of a situation where he said, if someone on my team kneels during the anthem, they could be cut. Well, what if Dak did it? What if Ezekiel, both Dak and Ezekiel, you're going to cut those players?
Yeah, you're cutting them, eh?
So he had to figure out a way, and so what he did was, and look, as much as people, I mean, it's Jerry's world and it's a freak world. Like, it's a circus world. He goes, okay, so maybe what we'll do is we'll kneel before the game, like before the anthem. We'll show the unity. I'm going to get some great shots. People are going to get some shots of me kneeling down, them players, and getting all sweaty, and about that protest, because you don't disrespect the flag or the anthem, but I look good doing this, and no one gets cut. I mean, it's a win-win. But by doing that, don't you think, and I want to hear from you today, I think that the meaning of the protest now, which is just basically, like, you better be on it now. What if you're the team that doesn't do that? Because now it looks like you're pro-Trump.
Bingo.
There are still some players, like Witten last night, had a comment after the game. He said, you'll have to put a bullet in me the day that I don't stand up for my anthem and put my hand over my heart. Like, you're going to have to. He goes, that will never happen. As long as I'm playing and alive to do so, my hand's going over my heart and I'm standing up. And so it has become this jockeying of position of what you're going to do. And I got to be honest, and again, people's rights to protest, which I completely understand. It's in their Constitution. It is freedom of speech. But the reason guys like me and Dave took this job is because we never studied those things.
No.
We don't know what they mean. We did this to not talk about politics. It's the one thing that a decision I made earlier on when they actually wanted me to be a newsreader. They're like, well, you could just, they part your hair a certain way and you have a nice sounding voice or whatever they were telling me.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, and it's just, I'm sorry. I mean, look at me.
It's difficult.
I don't want, because I don't want to read for a living. And the thing with the TV hens, and I just, fuck off. Like, I just want to talk about the game. And guess what? If you do that, if we were to do that this morning, if we did it yesterday, and even for tomorrow, Will Strickland, by the way, is going to come on, and he might have a special guest.
Okay.
Because he's a very connected guy.
Yep.
So as people say, well, what two middle-aged white guys going on talking about what do you know? Well, I do have some perspective, and so does Dave, after years of dealing with sometimes only Americans. Certainly enough if you want to call them African Americans, but I call them black. I mean, my black friends are my black friends.
Yeah.
I don't call them African Canadians. I guess technically if you want to do that, but to me, people are just people, and in the area that we chose to make our profession was sports. So basically, we can talk sports. If it goes off the rails occasionally, it usually was for fun, for shits and giggles. But this is completely different, and now it's become almost, to me, a little of the circus of the absurd, because now it's all about people watching to see who kneels and who doesn't kneel. This can't end soon enough. But then you had Trump last night tweeting again.
Mm-hmm. Dude,
he's not backing down because
dude doesn't shut up.
No, he doesn't, Dave. And guess what? What is the biggest concern in the United States right now? What is the biggest issue? Okay, it's this. People say no, it's not. It's North Korea. It's healthcare. Oh, I get all that. But we didn't open up the show saying, the problem with healthcare south of the border, Dave, or Kim Jong-un or whatever the freak is down in North Korea, because they're spouting off again today about, the Americans are the aggressors. I mean, that truly is the scary stuff that's happening right now in this world. I got to it in the 17th minute of the show because I'm talking about who's kneeling and who's not kneeling, because I'll be honest, it is the story, whether you like it or not. People say, stick to the sports, only the sports scores. Okay. So the Cowboys win. Dak Prescott looked great. He did. Really agile, too. That one throw that he made, that back foot kind of fade, It's like the fadeaway 3 that you see from some guys do.
Yes.
I mean, you got to be strong to do that, and he hits them in the end zone.
Yeah, off balance.
Off
fadeaway.
balance.
Yeah, I know.
That is a sign of a guy that just he can improvise. He's got the athleticism, but unlike Tony Romo, who would he would make plays exciting that really shouldn't be exciting. I mean, that's what I always found with Tony Romo. Not that I hated him. I wasn't a hater. It's just that I knew he would get himself into trouble at some point. I look at the Dak Prescott already. So this is year number 2?
Year number 2.
And I'm going, if he stays healthy with his understanding on how to read, and that's the game, folks. It's not about your arm, how fast. It is all between the ears. And if it's matched with an athleticism that allows you to do some things and an offensive line, give me some targets and a running back, you can win a championship.
It's a very good opportunity for them. A lot of people thought they underachieved last year by falling out at the wrong time, but you know, it's sometimes when you have that monster in front of you, you have to train that monster how to win. You know, you find out. I guess you lose to take that step back, but in the future, it's the winning that comes from the losing. Every championship team does it. I mean, you look at what the Islanders had to do in the early '80s, losing before they win. The Oilers falling to the Islanders before they go on their tear. It's one of those setbacks.
Taking that model though, then what you just said, who has gone through that process, which is why you think they can win? Has Edmonton gone through that process? The current Oilers.
Ooh, that's tough. See, because I think they still have to lose one more time before they win. I don't think they win this year. I think the Edmonton Oilers, I would be shocked, and I know next week we're going to get into some NHL previews and stuff like that, because that's coming up. Looking
100%.
forward to that. But just a sneak peek, I would be shocked if the Edmonton Oilers aren't playing in the conference final this year.
Yeah.
Shocked. They fall, next year is their chance.
The only one who doesn't fit in that model, because I agree with you, sometimes you have to go there and lose. And know,
and it sucks.
Know
man,
what the show coming.
But that's the way it is, though.
The Washington Capitals, I don't think are going to.
No,
I don't think they follow that model because I don't think they're going to win.
No, I don't think they're going to win either.
The pain of the losing and what they've gone through, seemingly haven't stepped it up. They got to that one level and have never
broken through.
No,
exactly. Because if they follow the model of what we've seen in the past, not only do they break through to a conference final and maybe lose there, then this would be their year. The team's been kind of torn apart a little bit. There's people are kind of questioning it, and I don't think they have whatever it is in that dressing room to make it to that next level. And I know we've talked to Marty McSorley before, and I'm kind of siding on some of the things he said on this show, where I don't know if you can win with Alex Ovechkin. I truly do not think so.
He had a great comment. Maybe at some point we'll go back and listen to those comments, because I thought they were bang on. Someone else I want to revisit as well, just because he's a good friend and certainly has a perspective closer than most people when it comes to the Tampa Bay Lightning, is Dave Andrechuk.
Okay.
How good is Tampa Bay going to be? Because they're almost like this Rubik's Cube where they have all this kind of talent, but it doesn't necessarily line up every year. They've had some injury challenges. Sometimes it's with goaltending. Sometimes it's with, an aging superstar in Steven Stamkos. But with what they have going into this season, because still you got a pitch. We just talked to Joe Bartnick, who thinks, of course he's a Penguin fan, but thinks that they still have the guts of what it takes to win. Does Tampa Bay... Do they, and I can't say break through because they are one of the elite teams in the East. I think you have to give that up.
I think the Atlantic Division itself is going to come down to two teams. I'm not going to say who I think who's going to win, but it will be Toronto or the Tampa Bay Lightning who actually win the Atlantic Division. Some of the question marks, I guess, when you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning are you no longer have Ben Bishop as your backstop, where the guy is Mr. Reliable. He's been a Vezina candidate. Andrei Vasilevsky has the ball by himself. Yeah. Will he be able to make that next step? A lot of people say yes, but
Robin Leonard was supposed to be that.
Robin Leonard was supposed to be like that too. Now, I think this guy is going to be better than what Robin Leonard has turned out to be, but there's no I guess secondary backdrop for Tampa Bay and net. it's Vasilevsky or nothing. But right now,
that's tough.
They've shored up their defense. They've shored up their offense. Steven Stamkos appears to be healthy. They have everybody in place to make a pretty nice run. Defensively speaking, I think they're much better than the Toronto Maple Leafs. But the Toronto Maple Leafs have a better offense, and I think the Toronto Maple Leafs may have the edge in goal, although I'm still not sold on Freddie Anderson as being the guy that's going to lead you to a promised land.
Yeah, when we talked to Justin Bourne, and we brought that up, he still defended Freddie Anderson a little bit. I felt he still, and again, he's up close and personal with it. And my thinking is, I still don't know if I'm putting him in the category. If you have, and again, these are at their peak time. So if it's Pekka Rinne, if it's Tuukka Rask, if it's a healthy Carey Price, you know, these are the guys that you put them in goal. And roast beef, you're a Leaf lover. If I'm, and again, these are ridiculous scenarios because they're not getting any of those guys.
That'd be good if we could key him up saying Leaf lover underneath his name.
If indeed they had something like that, aren't they at least that much closer to a Stanley Cup win?
I think so. I honestly don't know if I put Tuukka Rask in that category anymore. I don't think
in their prime at that moment.
In their prime,
yeah.
I really love Frederik Andersen.
Oh, you're because you love them all. Okay, all right.
Like I think he's good, and with a little bit more of an improved defense, then he'll be able to be more stable in net.
You know what this reminds me of? No, this is a take you won't get anywhere in the world. Yesterday, through Amazon.com, my wife ordered a Care Bear Halloween costume for Marissa. And she was excited as hell. It's pink, has a heart on it. I'm thinking that guy over there that was just speaking might have the same outfit for Frederik Andersen. And a heart on it. And
he said a heart on
it. Yeah,
not the other thing. Let's be honest. Now it's getting uncomfortable.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I was going to say, if it did have that. Hey, Frederik.
Is that the pink bear costume with a hard cock?
Yes, I wore it for you.
Get out. Leave. How many times, kid, you come down after every practice?
Yes, exactly.
Bear costume, dink. And like, I don't want to see your dink.
I can't wait for next Wednesday. A week tomorrow, the NHL season starts.
Okay, so let's really make roast beef happy. And
roast beef has a story about his class yesterday too.
After this.
Okay. Okay, so
it's a tease.
Oh, I like it. Okay,
and then we'll hear the rest of the story. But first, last night, it's preseason.
Yes.
It was Al Montoya. No, he's not phoning in today. I know people are like, Montoya should be calling in. The first goal wasn't exactly stellar.
No.
So get this, NHL. We realize preseason, property of the National Hockey League, courtesy of our friends at TSN.
Yes.
And visually as seen on Rogers Sportsnet, but property of the National Hockey League, the amazing Austin Matthews.
Now Austin Matthews back the other way, a long shot, scores! Matthews snaps that right by Al Montoya, and 47 seconds in, Toronto has a 1-0 lead.
Property of the National Hockey League.
Beautiful shot by Matthews, but Montoya's got to make this stop. Brendan Gallagher, sharp angle shot. Anderson kicks it out to Komarov, who finds Austin Matthews in the middle of the ice. It's a long wrist shot that Montoya doesn't see.
A wrister.
A good glimpse of. Does it deflect off the stick?
Jonathan Drouin with a scratch. Austin Matthews works back in.
So he follows the puck.
Nylander shoots Montoya down. Rebound. Matthews scores.
Here's what's impressive about that particular goal is that as he follows it around like goal scorers do, they kind of follow where that plays. It's a one-timer in terms of his attempt at putting it in the net. It wasn't the easiest. I know it looked easy, like a garbage goal, but that's a goal scorer goal, knowing where to be, and then in one swoop, making that happen. So here it comes. Continues on. Boof. Goal scorer goal. Roast beef, you got to be just... Do you have a heart on for this particular series of plays? Here comes another one.
Austin Matthews for the hat trick, scores!
Yeah.
If I can invade this conversation for a second.
Yeah, we've seen enough. We got it. Hat trick.
Al Montoya as much as I love him, because I love him not only on this show but in real life, former Winnipeg Jet backup, is making a pretty good case not to be employed in the NHL this year. I'm just saying. I know some of those were kind of like, but man, all you have to do is be able to carry 15 games a year, because Carey Price will be playing most of the games. So don't screw up the games you're in. But in that scenario right there shows me that
he'd see what, 10 games more.
Yeah, well, I said 15, but
15. Okay,
but nonetheless, it's one of those scenarios where it's like, dude, just do your job and look alive in net. And he wasn't yesterday. So, if you're the Montreal Canadiens and you have to put on your backup goalie and you're not getting that, it's just like here in Toronto, to tell you the honest truth. Curtis McElhinney has to kind of do the same thing. And so far, he's kind of stunk in the preseason. Yeah. It's like, do your job. It's 10 to 15 games tops. And if you can't do that, we'll find somebody that can.
Well, because there are guys there are Bs out there.
Yeah, there
can find a B.
By the way, out of town scoreboard. So Austin Matthews 4 points yesterday against the Canadiens. Patrick Laine 5 points against the Calgary Flames.
Gee, how we sneak that one in. Before we get to Clark Judge, the company he's with now is the
Talk of Fame
Talk
Network.
of Fame. The Talk of Fame Network. Weird circumstance. I mean, you wonder who we are sometimes doing this show. And for those that have watched us south of the border for the first time, or you've subscribed to us and you've enjoyed the show, maybe you aren't familiar with the background. Here's something interesting that came up about Dave Bastel yesterday at Ryerson Polytechnical Institute. Just called Ryerson when I went there.
You got the whole thing in there,
oh, yeah.
Right? That's
well,
sweet.
It wasn't called that when I went there. Nope. It was called Rye High.
Rye High.
And so...
Double rye.
Explain, at least. Thus the grades in the Chinese exam. But what happened yesterday at your school there, Roast Beef?
So I was in my sports broadcasting class last night, 6 to 9. We watched some of the Leafs game in it. Not gonna lie.
Yep.
Had to break down the broadcast, but
tremendous education.
Yep. So we got handed a script from a live television broadcast of a preseason game in September of 2008, and we flipped over to the pre-show and opening, and David Bastel's name on the script as a reporter.
Pretty cool.
As a reporter. Yeah. It has, for Rogers Sportsnet, items, news, pre- and show opening, truck responsibilities for Monday.
Yeah, it's legit.
And there it is. And I thought it'd be interesting.
I don't remember this game, but, you get one of these per game, basically, and away we go.
It's got the rundowns. It's got Tim Hortons. It's got Toyota. It's got the Molson. The game... Do we know what the game is?
I think it was the Sabres,
It was
right?
Toronto versus Buffalo.
Yeah. Toronto versus Buffalo. Okay, well let's just see if we can relive this and how that might have gone. I'm just looking at the script, and I believe we'll bring in the voice of Bob Cole to see how that would have sounded. All right, stoppage in the action there, and now we go with the Leafs bench report with David. Oh boy, Bastille. All right, kid, what's going on? What's happening there?
Not much, Bob. So far, the Leafs power play shooting 1 for 2 and still wanting to generate more offense in front of the Sabres net. We'll send it back to you.
Well, that was gripping. That kid with the pink bear suit's not showing up. That picture of a wiener on it, is he? And now back to the action. 2008. Who was on that team? Who's
I'm trying to remember if that was that Ron Wilson or was that?
Yeah, because we watched we had part of the broadcast.
Oh, Jesus!
So we watched some of it. It was the beginning of Ron Wilson.
Okay.
And this Leafs team featured Leafs greats like Boyd Devereaux and Yuri Talusti.
Oh, those were good teams.
And Jason Blake and
the lean years.
The funniest part about that Jason Blake signing was he gets the massive contract from John Ferguson Jr. At the time, nobody else put a bid on Jason Blake, so he signed basically 5 seconds out of free agency away from the Islanders because the Islanders wouldn't touch that guy with a 10-foot pole.
We are going to contact Clark Judge here.
Okay, let's do this.
As the magic of Skype is working today.
Clark Judge.
I'm looking for Clark Judge. It's Mike Richards calling from rawmikeRichards.com.
Hey, Mike.
Clark, great to
How
have
you.
Well, you know what? I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted already. You know what? I guess at one point, Clark, I understood the protest, even though it was probably very polarizing, when Colin Kaepernick did it. And then there were variations of it. Then the president of the United States has his comment, and now it seems like everyone has their take on not only what the protest is about, but how they're going to show it. And when I saw Jerry Jones taking a knee before the game, before the anthem, I thought, okay, now I'm lost, and I wonder if the message is lost, is the meaning of whatever the original protest was to be, because everyone has a version, a stylistic performance of protest, and I'm yearning for the days when, quite frankly, Clark, we just talked about football.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are too, and that's why I think you see people turning off the games. I understand DirecTV lost some subscribers. People are rushing to get Alejandro Villanueva jerseys. It's become a very polarizing narrative. And you look around the league, and all people are talking about now is who stood, who knelt, who came out, who didn't. And I think the league has to do something here to try to get control of the message, because it's not, to me, it's no longer about protests of of injustice or whatever. It's become sort of, last week I thought it was an anti-Trump protest, to be honest with you.
It was 100%, Clark. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, this thing had sort of subsided, and then suddenly he goes on a rant for whatever reason. I mean, we've got people in Puerto Rico without power. We've got nuclear arms in North Korea. We've got the Middle East crisis, and we're talking about players protesting the national anthem. I mean, they're bigger fish for the President of the United States to fry. I just don't get it. And so that just ramped up the whole thing. And now suddenly that's what we're talking about. Who's going to kneel? Who's going to stand? We've got owners coming out there. We've got players being held in locker rooms. I find it pretty sad, to be honest with you. And I think you're right. The message is lost. It's because now I'm not sure, are they protesting the flag? I am pretty sure they're protesting the president's tweets and his behavior. It's just a really muddled King said, messed up, muddled up, shook up mess. I agree. It makes no sense. And
unfortunately, when people say, well, look, Mike, the reason that we watch and listen to you for years is that, you get to the sports, there's analysis, there's fun. But that would be ignoring really what the lead story is. I don't want it to be the lead story, but to say that it's not the story that has traction, it'd be wrong to not talk about it, Clark.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, it has to be, because it's going on all the time. And people are taking different stances. Now, what I don't understand, for instance, is the players say, you need to understand, we've got freedom of speech here. I understand that. I get it. But then Jim Kelly comes out and criticizes LeSean McCoy, and Jerry Hughes says, I'm going to rip Kelly for saying that. Well, wait a minute. You just said we've got to be tolerant of everyone. So Kelly's exercising his freedom of speech. He has the right to criticize whoever he wants. And that's the thing that's sad here. It's become, it's not just this. The United States is becoming a divided country. It's not just a racial divide; it's a social divide, it's a political divide. It's really sad to see, and the fissures are deep and they're strong. And I think that's what you're witnessing now. Those players and teams that were visible, and they were everywhere last Sunday, and last night, and I would guess this Sunday. To me, are protesting that divide. And I'm not sure where we go to next, Mike. I don't know what the next step is. I do think the NFL somehow got to get in front of this story, because it's been lagging behind, hasn't said anything, hasn't done anything. I don't think it knows what to do, because in the meantime, you've got people turning off your game, and you've got to step in front of this thing and do something. And honestly, Mike, I feel very strongly that what Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin did was the right thing. I mean, he kept his players in the locker room. He said, this is a football game. We came here to play football. We didn't come here to preach or practice politics. I'm keeping my guys in the locker room. And people tell me, well, that was disrespecting the flag. They disrespect it. They weren't even there. I mean, how can you disrespect it if you're not even there? And I thought what he did was the right thing. And honestly, I would suggest that that's what teams should do. The league should get a hold of this now and say, here's the deal. No teams are going out for the national anthem. No team. It's not disrespectful of the national anthem. We're keeping them in there because we have work to do. And this is a football game. They can do whatever they want after the game. I don't care. But I feel very strongly. My dad, I think they know my dad was in the service. He was in 3 wars, and he was in Vietnam and led the 5th Marines. He used to say to me, why are they even playing the national anthem before these games? Yeah. I mean, they're everywhere. It sort of trivializes something very special, trivializes it. And I sort of agree with him on that. So does it bother me that the Pittsburgh Steelers weren't standing out there? No, it doesn't bother me because I don't know who's standing, who's sitting, and frankly, I don't really care. I really don't.
Yeah, so that kind of leads me into the question, and I totally agree with you. Where a locker room, and I know they're going to have some trials with it just because of television and so forth, and teams have to be on the field at a certain time and so forth. But could we see something as early as Thursday, Clark? That maybe the NFL comes out and says, listen, you're staying in the locker room until 7:58 or whatever it works out to, or during the Sunday early games, 12:50 something, or whatever the scenario is, or even have the national anthem played 15-20 minutes earlier as the fans are kind of entering the stadium. Are we going to see that as early as Thursday? Because we're talking here on a Tuesday, and something has to happen sooner than later.
Yeah, I think it's possible because the league's always been, well, not always, but pretty much has been very good at getting ahead of stories. Now, it's lagged lately, and I think ever since the Ray Rice incident, things haven't quite been the same there. And so I would think somebody there says, listen, we've got to get in front of this story. This thing's not going away. It could get worse before it gets better. We need to do something. And we're very good at controlling the message. We need to control it here. I would think that would be the most reasonable solution. Now, there are going to be people who say, hey, there can be players that you can't tell me what to do. I mean, Alejandro Villanueva came out. I may go outside and kneel. Okay, well, that's fine. You can do that, but then there would be a penalty that you would incur. You're free to do that, but it would be a penalty that you would incur. And I'm not talking about just guys who kneel. I'm talking about anyone that comes out there. We want players confined in the locker room. You want to come out there, that's your freedom of choice, but then there will be a penalty that you would suffer. And what that penalty be, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, yes, people have a right to express themselves, but I would suggest to you that, if you go to work each day and you stand on your desk because you're protesting that the Leafs stink, then you would say, somebody would say, we can't do this. I mean, we're here to work. We can't do this. You've got a right to think what you want, but do it out in the streets. I mean, we're not here. It's a workplace. Like it or not, the stadium's a workplace. Those guys are going there to work. And we spoke last week to Gary Plummer. In fact, I'm posting something this afternoon, a former linebacker with the 49ers on our Talk of Fame Network radio show. And I asked him about the 87 strike, and then he sort of morphed it into Colin Kaepernick and this sort of thing. And he said, listen, this was last week. He said, we never would have allowed that to happen had he been on our team because we wouldn't have let him go out on the field before the game. Why? Because he's a distraction. We're there as a team. He would hurt my chances because his mind isn't on the game. His mind's on what he's doing for the anthem. It's a distraction, and I think that's something that never would have been allowed to happen. Well, that may be a minority opinion, but still it's a strong opinion from another side. And I do think at some point you'd have to say we've got to find a way that we can sort of get between both these sides, the polarized sides. And to me, honestly, as I said, I thought what Tomlin did was absolutely right. It's a football game. We're here to play football. We're not here to practice politics. So you know what? We're staying in the locker room. We're talking football. When you're ready for us, introduce us. We'll come out the field.
We're in conversation with Clark Judge from the Talk of Fame Network here on rawmike.richards.com. And, Clark, for the most part, I've always said, after game number 3, week number 3 in the NFL, I pretty much see a gauge. I see a trend. I've learned enough. Maybe there's some market corrections that I've seen after week number 3, and I know nothing. Now I'm looking at it, and there's a couple of head scratchers in there, and I think if I'm taking anything away, I realize that the Kansas City Chiefs play some real consistent football, and that Andy Reid has done a very good job with that. And I think that if Alex Smith is playing angry, I don't blame him. And I think for some athletes, it's good to have a little chip on your shoulder. But I looked at what Oakland did. I looked at what Denver did. I see the Bills in first place after 3 weeks in the AFC East. What are we taking away from week number 3?
Not a whole lot, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you're talking to a guy who covered the 49ers in 1994, when in the 5th game of the season, Steve Young was benched in the 3rd quarter, and they lost 40-8 to Philadelphia. And people said, the sky is falling. And that made them 3-2. And I said, look, we're 5 games in the season. Now I come up that year from San Diego where they hadn't won for years. But and I said, let's give these guys a chance to breathe. They didn't lose another game until the end of the season when they mailed it in because they had lapped the field. And they won the Super Bowl that year. So it's really, to me, too early to make kind of judgments. Games like that happen. What happened to Baltimore in London? They got blown out by a team that historically has been awful. You can have stinkers like that. You just don't want to have many of them. And to me, if there's consistency or if there's reason to panic, it's in New York where the Giants are. I mean, I look at the Giants and go, there's real trouble there now, because they've been consistently bad and only woke up in the fourth quarter last week when, in fact, their defense, which has been the backbone of that team and should have held the lead, didn't. It failed to hold the lead twice, and then the third time it gave it up for good, or gave up the game for good. So in places like, I mean, Denver, to me, I'm worried about Denver because of the quarterback, not so much because of what happened last weekend. What are a couple of the other teams you mentioned? Who else? Oakland. Yeah, I don't worry about Oakland I don't worry about Oakland that much. Cross-country trip. Yeah, they've been very good on the road. Now, if we have a couple more like that where you go, the Redskins laid down a blueprint for others, okay, maybe. But Oakland and Kansas City should be in a dogfight for the AFC West. There are just going to be games where you're going to find teams like the season opener with New England. And people went, holy cow, what happened there? That's not an indication that the Patriots are going in the jar. It's an indication to me that the Patriots weren't really ready. Their defense isn't particularly good, and they've got work to do. They've got Tom Brady quarterback, so we know they're going to be playoffs. They're going to go deep in the playoffs. They may go to the Super Bowl again. However, now what we know after 3 weeks is that defense still hasn't gotten much better. They have no pass rush. Without a pass rusher, they could be in trouble. I mean, Tom Brady can't consistently and always bail them out. And that's what happens there. They constantly rely on him to bail out a bad defense. Their best pass rusher is in Arizona, Chandler Jones. They gave him away. Yeah. They don't have one, so they've got to find one. Now, the one thing about New England is typically, I've seen this before with them, they get it going by November, December. He's got people he's playing in different places, and then by November, December, they're secure. They know what they're doing, and now they're a pretty decent defense. Not great, but pretty decent. Maybe that happens. I suspect it probably will because we've got a history with them. But after 3 weeks, I'd still be loath to jump off of any cliff, with the exception of Giants fans. My wife's a Giant fan. I'm looking down at her below. She wants me to throw a rope, so I'm going to try to help her out.
Hey, Clark, as a Jets fan, I'm kind of disappointed in what happened this weekend. Is this the Jets just accidentally winning something,
what are you doing?
Yeah, I know
the Dolphins just laying an egg.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. Like I hope this doesn't happen again. I have the Jets down for 2 wins this year, but to win 1 in September, I'm kind of shaking my head. What the hell happened there?
Yeah, I would be too. I mean, they played a team that couldn't run the ball, and you had Jay Cutler at quarterback. Oh, but remember, he fits the system. Well, he stunk if he didn't look any good. But I agree with that. The Jets, first of all, I thought were the worst team going into the season. I'm not so sure anymore. I mean, Cleveland really just keeps hitting it over the head with a hammer like, we stink. Don't you get it? We stink. But the Jets aren't very good, but their defense isn't bad, and that's what's going to keep them in games. The defense is. You saw them in Buffalo. They hung around. They hung around in that game. They're going to hang around with some teams, and they may find themselves with 3 or 4 wins before the season. I would have said 2 was right about accurate. I'd say that's and now I look at that and go, well, I mean, in that division, are they going to beat Miami again? Down in Miami, I wouldn't think so. They're not going to beat Buffalo. They're certainly not going to beat the Patriots. Maybe 3 or 4. Is 3 or 4 going to be good enough to get Sam Darnold? No, it won't. Because you've got Cleveland, and Indianapolis stinks. Now, I know Andrew Luck is coming back, but you've got some bad teams out there. And right now, it's the Browns. It sounds like a broken record. The Browns are at the head of the pack again. That's the one thing that they're good at being very bad every year.
Clark, Tampa Bay goes up, loses in Minnesota. But before I'm going to pile on Jameis Winston and the offensive side of things. Defensively, they missed a lot of guys at some. I think at one point, I think they had maybe 5 or 6 starters not on the field. That is so tough to play football that way. And I don't care who you're playing in the NFL. You start losing starters in those numbers, it's tough to win football games.
Yeah, it is, and it's reminiscent to me sometimes of what we see in baseball. I love watching baseball during the summer, and I love watching the Yankees, and so there are games you kick to the curb because you go, this guy's hurt, or we've got to save this guy, or you go, okay, listen, we'll forget about this. Just forget about these games because we've got to save people for the stretch run. And the same sort of thing I look at with football. Now, certainly you've got a much smaller sample size because it's 16 games. But there's some games where you say, like this one in Minnesota, we're missing so many our starters or key players. We'll do the best we can. We're probably not going to win this, but we may find somebody here in this game, in defeat, where you go, you know what? I mean, we could use this guy. This guy's going to be a player. Somebody else emerges. This guy can help us out. I mean, I look at last year with New England. When Brady was suspended, Jimmy Garoppolo for 2 games looked like Tom Brady. You go, whoa, this guy's pretty good. He ain't Tom Brady. Nobody else is. But it looks like if you had to use him, he could be effective. But that happens all around the league. And I think in defeat, you can find something successful. And I think maybe hopefully the Bucs found something there. I agree with you that I thought that was the lock of the week. I looked at going up in Minnesota, Case Keenum. I mean, and yet it wasn't a game from the very beginning. It wasn't a game. But you're absolutely right. There is an asterisk there. And the asterisk is they were missing a lot of key players. And that happens. And as I said to you guys, that's why I don't get too concerned with what's happening in week 3, week 4, week 5, somewhere around week 10, you start looking and go, okay, let's survey the field. Who's consistently good, and who's consistently inconsistent, to be honest with it.
We're on the line with NFL insider Clark Judge, also part of the Talk of Fame network. Clark, final question from me. Who turns around the season faster, 0-3 Cincinnati or 0-3 Los Angeles Chargers?
Oh, neither. Is that an option? Neither.
Sure it is.
I would say probably Cincinnati. Listen, the Chargers, I used to cover them for 10 years. I know that situation well. I'm around that team. I went out there this past summer for their last mini camp and spoke with Philip Rivers. It really bothers me. It bothers a lot of people. They're not in San Diego. I think it bothers a lot of people in the NFL. They're not in San Diego. But they're playing in a stadium that's half the size of most college stadiums, and people aren't showing up. Nobody cares about them in LA. And when they moved there, I don't know if you guys remember Bill Plaschke of the LA Times, who's a columnist for the Times. He wrote a column the day that they moved, wrote a column, and it said, "We don't want you Like, get the message. We don't want you. We don't want you. You're not welcome here." And the fans are demonstrating that. Wait till the Raiders play them. I wait till they have to host the Raiders, guys, and you'll see how much of a home advantage that is for the visiting team. And last week it was a sea of red with Kansas City. They didn't even introduce their players because they were afraid they're going to get booed at home because there's so many visiting fans. So that's why I think it's difficult for them. They're also in a division where, you've got 3 teams that are head and shoulders above you. I mean, Cincinnati got Cleveland. They're 2 wins. At least got Cleveland in that division. So to me, it's going to be much more difficult. Not much more, but it's going to be more difficult for the Chargers.
Clark, at least I think for your wife, who's a Giants fan, maybe she took away the fact that it was really awesome the way that Odell Beckham pretended he was a dog peeing on a thing. I mean,
love that. Yeah.
That reeks of. I don't know. Is that sort of a Roger Staubach that he did there, or I don't know where he got that influence, but boy, I'll tell you, that was tremendous being an 0-3 team and coming up with that routine.
Very classy. She's looking for another OBJ at the dog pound as we speak. That was. It was vulgar, should have been penalized. I would have sat him down. I mean, to me, it's a reflection, guys, I'll be honest with you, of the coaching staff. A strong coach there. Yeah, I mean, I sort of think, what would Dick have done with that?
Exactly.
So I look at Ben McAdoo and I go, wait a minute. I understand this guy is the most talented player on your offense, maybe on your team. I understand that you need him to win. I also understand that there's a message there, and players are looking at that. I've been around teams long enough to know they look at that and they go, we can get away with that? Okay. So I think I can get away with this. I understand the officials didn't like it, but coach didn't say anything to him. I would have benched his butt in 2 seconds and said, here's the deal. We've got rules and regulations around here. You want to pay attention to them? Fine. You'll sit nailed to the bench. I don't care how good you are. Until or unless you understand that this is a team game and it's not about your selfish behavior, you're not going to be on the field. So I was disappointed that nobody stood up and said, get him out of here. We can't have it. He just cost us 15 yards here on a stupid and selfish and vulgar penalty. Got to stop that. We can stop it right now. Because it wasn't stopped, what's he saying? He has no regrets. He's saying, I have no regrets about it. Well, he should have regrets. I would bet he'd hear from the league office.
Just before I let you go, because you bring up another matter, the Von Miller unsportsmanlike penalty with Tyrod Taylor, I'm like, the officials should probably have an understanding of the heat of the moment, and when 2 players are kind of laughing at each other, that, come on, you didn't understand what happened there. Taylor was laughing, Von Miller was laughing, all of a sudden the flag came out, and I thought, well, it was not a high hit. It was not a targeting hit, so I'm thinking, that can't be that call. And when it really was the fake handshake, I thought, that was a devastating penalty at one of the worst points of the game.
Yeah, the two things there. One is terrible call. And second, I don't know if you read or saw Von Miller's reaction afterwards or read what he had to say afterwards. He said, I cost my team the game. It was a stupid penalty. Now, I say that in sort of contrast to what Odell Beckham Jr. is saying.
Right.
Because he didn't say that. And your listeners say, well, he didn't cost him the game. No, but fact of the matter is this guy took responsibility and accountability for a penalty that never should have happened. And in my mind, wasn't even close to a penalty.
No.
And yet he still said, I cost our team the game. It was not a penalty. I think Mike Pereira's weighed in on that. I think even Dean Blandino weighed in on it. I saw it. I saw it live, and I went, you got to be kidding me. These guys are laughing. I mean, that to me is what this game should be about. When I saw them laughing, I thought, it's like, you go back to when you were kids and playing, and I got you. I got you on that one. Well, I'm going to get you back, and okay, you're laughing and having a good time. And I thought that was when you put out the handshake or put up the hand to lift him up and then pulled it back up. That's actually pretty funny. And then they were both laughing, and clearly they got along. And then someone said, well, maybe something was said. Well, if something was said, they wouldn't be laughing.
No, that's right.
Clearly a misunderstanding by the official, and I think it was Carl Cheffers who was doing the game. And if I were the league office, I'd call him and say, hey, Carl, I mean, what are you doing there? That shouldn't have happened. And I do think that it had a huge impact on the game. I'm not saying that it cost the Broncos the game. I don't think that, but it certainly it cost them time and it cost them points. They should have put that game away earlier. There were a couple bad throws by the quarterback that cost them the game. But that was a bad call that never should have happened. And that's, to me, is officials getting too much involved in the game when they shouldn't be.
Clark, awesome job as always. Just love having you on the program. Thanks so much for taking the time. Just a brilliant job. We just love it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
That is Clark Judge from Talk of Fame Network. Boy, what a great job he does. So thorough. And look, it's the other thing, too, is when you talk to a guy and he was there.
Yep.
That's the one thing that we're really pleased with having Clark on the show, because I'm telling you, that was a great job. That was a great interview. That was CJ. CJ did a great job, and he is right. One is Odell Beckham taking a pee like a dog on the flag. The other one is getting a flag and saying, sorry, bro, but I think I may have cost you the game. The other doesn't care. You decide. But really, that's what we're talking about. One guy's going, like you're 0-3. You know the phrase like look like you've been there before. Then there's the attitude of look at the scoreboard. In the bigger picture, you're 0-3, and that's what you came up with.
Yeah, just underachieving by all levels. And yeah, he's absolutely right. When you look at the NFL and you see the 0 for teams, and the expectations on a Cleveland Browns team is they are where they are, and the Chargers, they are where they are, and so forth. But the Giants, really? The Giants should have been not only contending for the division, but maybe the conference. That's how big of a setback that is.
I'm looking at how the games have played out. I like what now that they have Ezekiel out for the year. Are you liking Dallas?
Loving Dallas.
Yeah,
I'm loving Dallas, and to tell you the honest truth, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are getting closer and closer. They seem to be. It's going to be a nice test for them this weekend. They actually travel to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. That's a cross country travel. It's against a team that's hungry as far as wanting to win a game sooner than later, and time zone changes, everything like that. We'll see how they handle it against a team that, by rights, on a neutral field, they should be able to win.
Yes,
these are games that decent teams win. We'll see what the Eagles have to offer this week.
That point spread's going to be tight.
It's going to be tight.
I see it's a small number, and if we're getting angry, this is a perfect time to venture down the original. By the way, the originator of this.
And now it's time for Dave Bastel's Hateful Eight.
That's pretty hateful.
That guy's got some.
I'm thinking, I'm not as hateful as that guy.
Yeah.
But that guy knows his stuff. Thank you very much. Let's start off our 8 hates of this past weekend with the Pittsburgh Steelers. 7.5-point favorites in Chicago, and you allow the Bears to rush for 216 yards against that great Ole defense they have in Pittsburgh, where it's Ole. Everybody walks through, and man, Everybody rushes on that Steeler defense. That's got to change in a hurry if they're going to do anything. And Mike Glendon threw for 101 yards and still won the game. That is unreal how pathetic that turned out. Steelers, you got to do more for me if you're going to do anything. Speaking of what the hell are you doing, New York Jets. What the hell are you doing winning? You win a division rival game, you throw up bombs, you look like you know what you're doing. The defense is actually in place. They could have pitched a shutout. You're not supposed to do this. The future is a quarterback in Los Angeles. The future is him. You're losing him if you're going to beat games and win games like this against Dolphin teams. And Dolphins, I don't even have time for you right now.
You hate them so much they can't even make the Hateful Eight is what
honestly,
you're telling me. Wow.
And continuing with our theme of what the hell, Joe Flacco, 28 yards passing in an entire game. How do you pass for 28 yards in a set of downs? Never mind a game. That is just atrocious. And you know what? Don't ever call yourself elite again, Joe Flacco, because you faced the Jaguars and got ripped apart. You never faced the 84 Bears. You faced the Jaguars, and you looked atrociously bad.
Do you think roast beef could go into a game and throw for more than
28 yards? Yes. Yes, I do. Yeah, I clearly do.
So that's not good then.
That is not very good at all. No, he doesn't look like a quarterback. He looks like a punter. Giants. You know what? I'm sorry to say this, but you're the worst team in the state of New York. When the state of New York has the Bills and the Jets, and you're the worst, that's something right there. And by the way, Giants fans, only 5 teams have made the postseason since starting off 0-3 since 1970. Something to think about because that's the biggest collapse so far this season. Hey, Denver, don't pretend you have a good offense because you don't, okay? And you showed it against the Buffalo Bills because that's a game you probably should have won and you didn't take advantage of the opportunity. I know the Bills are a nice little team. The Bills won't be 500, by the way, so if you're any kind of contender against a very good Chiefs team and a pretty good Raiders team, you beat the Bills when you have to. Moving along. Shout out to the Browns, everybody. Good to see the Browns back. Woo! And their junior team, the Colts, by the way. The Colts beat you. And the Browns, for the first time since 2014, were actually favorites on the road, and that's how you play.
Come on.
That's pathetic.
That was a kiss of death, if you ask me.
It really was. And you know what, Browns? Keep on being the Browns because we love you for it. NFL officials. Can you guys get any worse? Are you guys competing with the NBA officials? Because they might be the worst of the worst, but you know what? You're right there. You're right there with calls like the Von Miller call and you know, this 10-second runoff rule. I know it's not your fault, but I as a guy that had the Lions plus 3 points.
See, now we're getting to the heart of the matter that they made the
Richards,
Hateful Eight
this
list.
is called the Hateful Eight.
Yes,
okay?
it is. Yes,
and
it
I
is.
hate this, and I hate this because I had the Lions plus the points, and man, that's just disappointing. Raiders in prime time. Maybe you don't belong in prime time because you had a nice opportunity. I'm not a Raider fan, but I like it when the Raiders win because football is good when the Raiders win.
I agree.
But you know what? Derek Carr, 118 yards. Marshawn Lynch, 18 yards rushing for the game. Amari Cooper, 6 yards receiving for the game. Michael Crabtree, 7 yards. I mean, guys, show up. Yeah. It's prime time. It's terrible. I want more from the Raiders. I expect more. I think there's going to be a nice little bounce back. But right now, that's my Hateful Eight.
Oh, very nicely done. And I agree with that runoff. I mean, so there's a team that would have to, what was it, 1 or 2 yard line? 1 yard line?
Yeah, almost the 1 inch line if you really want to get technical. So it was right there.
So
it was like,
you're trying for a safety. Like, you got to dive over that line. At least you got a shot at it.
Yes.
And now it's like, nope, the game is over. Like, that was just, well, no, what are you doing? Oh, there's time the clock. Yeah. Oh, you got to stop him. Game's not over, not over.
You know what's really funny? And I'm not joking when I say this. They score the touchdown. I'm excited as hell. Everything's great. It's going to review because there's a scoring play.
Have to.
I'm so confident with it. I pick up Nicole and go change her, thinking that everything's okay. Irene comes to me and says, "You may not want to look at the television." I walk back with Nicole after she's changed. She had a rough weekend. She had a little bit of a fever. She's teething, so it hasn't been, it's been a Hateful Eight for her as well. And so we come back. And the players are walking off the field, and it says final score, Falcons 30, Detroit 26. Yeah. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. PVR, back. And it's like, really, 10-second runoff? That guy had the balls to take back a winning touchdown. Yeah. And it's like, oh. And then the other side of me, he says this. Lions are in 4-down territory. and just inches and yards away from the score that actually puts them ahead, that puts them into the conversation of, hey, the lines are for real. And they don't have the trust in a running back to get you a couple of yards.
Well, there's a couple things about that game too. Now, we said that probably one of the better games of the week, and it was. It was.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you cannot on your own home turf let Atlanta have a first quarter, first half like they
Bingo.
did.
That's what it was.
You're supposed to own it. You're supposed to make it hard for them to come back in your home, and they did it the other way around. You play with fire because receivers like Sanu.
Yep.
Who to me he's
a secondary receiver, but he played like a prime.
Oh, I think he's a money player. I
mean, when you look at what they have with Julio Jones and so forth, and it's like to have a Sanu as a secondary target, which a lot of guys would look at as a primary. Hooper, the tight end, the two running backs they have, where they could almost go, one side this guy, one side the other guy, rotate in and out. Matt Ryan has legitimately 7 targets to throw to, and they're all healthy. The offensive line looks okay.
Like Julio Jones, how do you cover him all the time? You just can't.
Julio Jones is a top 5 receiver in the world.
Yep.
That's how good this guy is.
I agree.
He's so athletic. He can run the slant position. He can run on the outs. He can do almost anything. And we don't really hear too much about him because Atlanta, for the most part, isn't a public team. If Julio Jones is on the Patriots or the Cowboys or the Packers, we're praising him as the Jerry Rice of the NFL.
I agree.
That's
That's
how
good.
He is.
He is that good. Before we end the show, I mean, it's with the politics and again the conversation that Dave and I have about those issues and about the protest. And then so what we're going to do tomorrow, I said, okay, let's get a guy who actually has a handle on this.
Okay.
Well, Will Strickland, good friend of the show, going to join us. And he has not only he's American, he was born in New York, played his college ball in Houston, lives predominantly not only in the sports world but the hip hop world. He's very connected. He puts on shows. He spends, I would say, almost half his time south of the border. He's an entrepreneur. He's a business guy, and he has all these connections as a Black American. So what does he think of this? What is his take on what's going on right now? So he's going to join us tomorrow.
Good,
because
always good seeing him.
Yeah, it's good, and he's very articulate, and I want to see what he has to say. So we're going to do that tomorrow. But we do get buried with the weight of it sometimes. So as Jon Stewart used to say on his show, and Jon Stewart was a beauty, that moment of zen. Well, here's after all of this, my moment of zen. Why? Because I'm a dad, and you can kind of appreciate when kids try stuff. So as much as we saw the ventriloquist the other day, the English guy, really how ridiculous this thing is, here's a young kid who's trying it out with the innocence of a child. Even if it's not great, it's not to be made fun of. It's just our moment of zen.
Hey cheerleader, where do you live? Alabama. What's your favorite sport? Tennis. Why do you like tennis? I can accidentally hit people with the ball. Oh. Okay. My favorite sport is soccer. Why? So that I can kick people in the nuts when they're not looking and say it was an accident. Great toys.
So
that's
there he is talking out the side of his mouth.
You couldn't tell.
And the parents,
I thought he did a good job.
Parents, what was that last joke? That is your moment of zen, courtesy of that kid. I hope he becomes famous because that's the kind of stuff that we gravitate towards.
Bingo. Time to churn the butter.
Yeah.
Time to end it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be back tomorrow.
Maybe a double churning.
You want to go do karate in the garage?
Yes. Yes, I do.
It's time!
Would like to thank the outstanding Clark Judge. What a great job. He always does a great job. Just so thorough. Love his take from the Talk of Fame Network. Also, mentioning again, Will Strickland. And we may contact someone, too, also while we're on the air as well. You never know with Will, but he'll have a great take on the constant conversation of protest, to kneel or not to kneel, quite frankly, whatever. Because that's where it is now. I think it's lost its meaning, which is too bad. Join us tomorrow. Going to be a great show. Yep. That just happened.